students, it's Emily Poole. I'm going to combine topics 3.3 and 3.4 together because they both deal with economic development. So let's just get right into this. We know that Unit 3 is absolutism and constitutionalism, and these new absolute monarchs are gaining their power and supporting their wealth through a lot of economic changes. But continuities are always easier to talk about, so that's where I'm going to start. A continuity is something that stays the same over a given time period, and changes are things that veer off, that change during a given time period. This is a key historical thinking skill that the AP test wants you to know and that you will be tested on. So if you are struggling with skills like comparison, causation, or CCOT, make sure that you check out my ultimate review packet because I have a ton of skills prep for you. All right, economic continuities that have continued from the first 2 units of study. European countries are still gaining an incredible amount of wealth due to their mercantilist policies from their colonies in the New World. And while that transatlantic slaving system is ramping up in size as more enslaved Africans are sent along the Middle Passage to work in sugar plantations or coffee plantations in the Americas, it is still a continuity. It is still in existence. Even though the scale is growing, that has not changed. And another part of mercantilism is that the mother country benefits, yes, by taking resources and extracting resources out of their colonies, but also because those colonies provide new markets for the mother country to send manufactured goods to. All of this is a continuation in economic practice compared to what we've already learned about in class, right? European countries have colonized, are using mercantilist policies, they're using enslaved labor, they're extracting resources from their colonies in the Americas or sometimes in the Indian Ocean region in order to gain themselves lots of wealth and lots of power. And the Europeans are dominating the transatlantic trade. They're dominating the Indian Ocean trade by this point. And now that we've covered the continuities, let's talk about the changes, the things that are new to economic development. Think about Europe during the Middle Ages. It is controlled by feudalism and manorialism, those political and economic practices. And slowly over time, from, the 1200s to now, there has been a release of that kind of control on the general populace of the serfs or the peasants or the lower class in Europe. And it is because of that, because this traditional landholding power has been released, that Europe is able to make some economic changes. In order to make as much money as possible, corporate entities and governments start freeing people from restrictions within labor and trade. That, plus the fact that the Enclosure Acts led to a lot of urbanization in European cities, plus the fact that the agricultural revolution, you guessed it, revolutionized agriculture due to new technological innovations, means that Europe is slowly marching toward this market economy. And the way that the Europeans make their goods prior to the Industrial Revolution is through the putting out system, which is sometimes also called a cottage industry. If you are planning on making a shirt in England, someone can be responsible for raising the sheep, and then someone harvests the wool, and then someone spins the wool, and then someone weaves the wool. And these are all happening at different places so that eventually they will make their way to a market where a finished good will be sold. This development of a market economy, as Europe is slowly marching toward more capitalistic economic policies, leads to the creation of new things like insurance and banks. Banking institutions start to turn their private savings into venture capital, which they then plug back into these early industries that are developing. And with all of these new products being produced in a shorter amount of time than before, means that consumerism is going to rise. People want all the best new things. Is there anything new under the sun? That is a continuity in history. We always want the newest, the shiniest, the biggest, the best. So did Europeans back in, the 1600s and 1700s. And just as we are today, Europeans are influenced by other places around the world, namely their colonies. So as they are gaining resources and taking trade or new goods from other areas, they are getting influenced by those new goods, and things like luxury goods, porcelain in China, become hot commodities in Europe. So to summarize, there are a lot of economic continuities, like the continued use of mercantilist policies, the continued reliance on enslaved labor, and the fact that Europe is dominating global trade. There are new changes too with the putting out system or the cottage industry and the development of new banking systems or insurance systems that essentially produced early VC companies that could then fund all of their money back into the industry. I wonder what that's going to lead to, students. Hope this helped, and as always, you can do it. I believe in you.